Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We start off this morning, yes, with matters of the economy. Somewhat politics still going on, but then the economy needs to be addressed. And so we are getting over to examine that CBN policy on Forex restriction on 41 products. Okoroafor joins us. He's the special advisor to the CBN governor on communication. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Yes, indeed. I know you have heard several responses to that CBN's directive restricting Forex to 41 products. What's the rationale behind that decision?
Well, the rationale is that we've got to a point in the life of our country where we need to take our own destiny in our hands. We have seen that the only commodity that we use in raising foreign exchange has gone down by more than 45% in value. That's oil. And we've got to a point where we have less than 5 months of imports. So it's important for us to know that as Nigerians, we must begin to produce locally, consume locally made goods, and also conduct foreign exchange. That's really what's behind that process. We need to create employment for our young people who are all over the place looking for work. We can't, I couldn't have put it better than Dangote himself. He said that we cannot be exporting jobs and importing poverty.
Okay, so well-intended policy, but let's look at the implementation of it. What measures, what has been put in place? Is it, because many think that to them it appears as though it's knee-jerk. What have been put in place to ensure that these jobs are not exported? Are you relying on saying, well, if you restrict Forex, automatically those jobs will begin production here in the country?
We have 170 million mouths to feed, and they must eat, they must be clothed, they must have shelter. And that huge demand must be met somehow. And what we are saying is we have enough local production capacity. We even have enough production in so many areas for people to consume. And that is what will help reduce this export of jobs and then increase the incidence, raise prosperity among Nigerians.
Well, what I'm trying to ask is, was there any prior notice to all those involved in those products which you say can be manufactured here, saying, listen guys, you've got this timeline and then the deadline, to the extent that, well, if you don't meet this, this is what we're going to do? Because the rice, for instance, which you talked about, they gave them several timelines. They had a lot of production going on here, several scenarios. But did we, or did the CBN give that much information before this announcement of the restriction?
There are two things there. One is our consumption profile. Nigeria is consuming rice that is imported from other countries. But we know that we have enough paddy rice here that is not even that is in the warehouse, waiting to be prepared for the market. We have the millers who don't have much work for their mills. We have about 23 or 24 rice mills. The paddy rice is there, but because we have cheap rice that comes in from other countries, where you can't even bring in anything from any other country, those countries have closed their own borders, and we have opened our borders. That is the problem that we have. And we must start somewhere at some point to begin to encourage local production and local consumption of local items.
I get that point. I get the point. But the thing about that particular policy on rice is that all of those farmers, I mean, the government did tell them that much, that, look, we have a 4-year target, we have a 3-year target, we have a 5-year target. So they were all aware. But some in this industry have said there was no prior notice from the CBN and that this is a knee-jerk policy. Is that correct?
I'm surprised I said it's a knee-jerk policy. We've always talked about it. And let me just pull back a bit and ask a question. People who are saying that it's a knee-jerk policy, they will know that so many years ago we set up NAFTA, where we created capacity, we de-risked the rice sector, we de-risked 11 sectors to make them more bankable. The same thing for tomato, for cassava, and so many other items. Palm oil, for instance. What we're saying is, at some point, we need to make sure that those policies are working. And it is clear that if we continue at the rate we are going, importing toothpicks, importing champagne and stuff like that, there is nothing that will be left in terms of foreign exchange. And of course, as you know, there will be unemployment with the social consequences, which we're already seeing all over the country.
Mr. Okoroafor, I know you said something about encouraging local production, but did the CBN also take into consideration the fact that the equipment needed to carry out local production, some of the raw materials needed to carry out this local production will require foreign exchange? And so if the CBN is taking the exchange rate so high, it would also affect the local producers and thereby discouraging them as well.
No, the restriction is not on inputs. On the contrary, this money will then go to inputs and for raw materials, good seedlings, and bear in mind that in the past 3, 4, 5 years, we have increased lending to agriculture fourfold. Production level has gone up, and we are finding a situation in which there is better management efficiency in the agro-processing sector. Before now, Nigeria used to lose 80% or so of its tomatoes from the farm gate to the farm, from the farm gate to the market. But what we did there was we had an anchor investor who then had some money, created that production capacity, and then there is a grower, an outgrower mechanism with cooperatives to feed that particular meal. And we believe that in the next few months, that Nigeria will be self-sufficient in tomato. I even see a situation in which we won't have enough tomato to feed that particular meal that has been created. And the same thing is going to happen in rice and other areas. Now, let me also tell you something that we need to know as Nigerians. There is no country that just opens its border. From the U.S., in the U.S., for instance, you can't bring in Canadian pharmacy. You can't bring in Canadian drugs, even though they're cheaper. In Ghana here, for you to go into retail trade, which they know Nigerians do very well, you need like $700,000 or so in capital. The same thing, just recently, Uber, I don't know if you the taxi, the Uber program, which is cheaper as a means of transport all over the world. You see people in London and all those places, they're protesting. In France, they're protesting against Uber, the Uber system, because they're saying that it will throw them out of job. The same thing happened in India. In India, they were protesting against Walmart and all these other stores that want to come in because they said it will disrupt retail business. It's only in Nigeria that we have just open borders, and Nigerians, please, we want people to look at it from the point of view of creating employment and moving this economy forward. We must take our destiny in our hands. Look at what Greece did yesterday. And part of why that is being resisted by the developed economies is that they don't want it to be a model.